Hello and welcome to In Business Talks 2. We are thrilled to welcome you to our bonus episode, The Friday Fix. In our bonus episode, we will be discussing a business-related subject with either one of our wonderful In Business networking members or a fellow business owner who will be sharing their advice, thoughts or knowledge on a particular topic.
We're your hosts, Tracy and Ian Earle, founders of In Business, a networking and business support community. We host online and face-to-face events and we'd love to meet you, so why not come along? The link to book is in the show notes. Our guest today is Matt Sturgess of Mind Locksmiths, and Matt is talking about how our mind works and how it helps to focus on our business goals. Welcome to our Friday Fix today, and with us we have Matt Sturgess of Mind Locksmiths. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Welcome. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Good to see you today. Before we start, would you like to tell us a little bit about what you do, Matt?
Yeah. I'll give you a little journey first. So I started life as an engineer, which is important because engineers are very curious people. So that's a key part of what I do. Got into sales, ended up running businesses, did all sorts of things like that. But in the last 10 years, I've been fascinated with how the mind works. Because to my mind, it's the most amazing piece of kit we've got. We can do incredible things with it, or it can take us to dark places, and nobody gave us a user guide. And it's not as intuitive to use as an iPhone. So now I help people with mental resilience and just being more productive, really, in terms of trying to reduce the amount of mind churn that's going on, whether it's self-doubt, fear, worry, procrastination, things like that, so they can be more effective in business. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, it is a wonderful piece of kit, like you say. But yeah, we don't get a journal, do we? We don't get an instruction.
No, we have to wing it, don't we? We have to wing it, yeah.
Yeah. When you think of any other bit of technology you at least get the short user guide, don't you? The sort of, with the mind, we just have to work it out as we go along and hope for the best.
You're going to talk today about how the mind works and how you can focus more on achieving your business goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's some rather sort of unusual things about how the brain works, and there's a particularly important part of the brain called the reticular activating system, which physically sits right at the base of the brain, and it's part of the old part of the brain, and it's basically your filtering system. So to give you an example, if ever you thought about buying a new car, you've decided it's going to be a VW Golf. And suddenly you start noticing VW Golfs all over the place. You notice one in Tesco's car park, you notice one at a friend's house, you remember having one a few years ago. It was always there, yeah, but now you've noticed it. Well, that's because there's a thing called, the reticular activating system. So it takes information from 4 of your senses, it doesn't include smell, and filters that out and looks for whatever you've decided you want to place your attention on. So that's why it keeps popping up, all those sort of things. The smell doesn't. Interestingly, smell, which probably won't be a surprise, goes straight into a part of the brain that's to do with memories. So that's why on the odd occasion you smell something, you think, God, that really takes me back. Well, that's because it's plumbed straight in. Whereas the reticular activating system filters out hearing, sound, touch, and taste. So when you take that in the context of business, whatever you're focusing your mind on, your reticular activating system will help you find it, help you sort of achieve the best way of getting there. So not only does it take information from the 4 senses, it takes all the information that you've gathered throughout the years, because it's all stored in your mind, and it will hand you little bits to think, this might be useful, this might help you. But the important thing is, if you're focusing on your goals, that's what it will help you on. If you're focused on what you're fearful of what might go wrong, it will help you with that.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of quotes that relate to this one. Our daughter found many years ago was, she believed she could, so she did, by a lady called R.S. Gray. But that summarizes really how the reticular activating system works. It will prove you right. Whatever you've decided to place your attention on, it will prove you right.
Right. And is there a way of tricking it into the goals rather than the fears?
Yeah, there is. So there's sort of two ways of thinking about it. If you take the analogy of taking a penalty in a football match, so if you focus on scoring the goal, i.e. what you want to achieve visually, that's the thing to go for. If you're focusing on, God, I might mess this up, I might miss, then you're giving your brain an image of you missing the penalty. And the ancient parts of the brain, there's three evolutions of the brain. The oldest part, which is what the reticular activating system is, its language of communication is images. So whatever image you're giving it, it's thinking, that's what you want then. The second oldest part of the brain is emotion. So that's why we can get into that a bit more. You get gut feeling, and I can explain what gut feeling actually is. So yeah, so if you want to focus on your goals, the best thing to do is create images that represent what your goals are and put some emotion around them. And what you just need to be mindful of is if your mind's drifting off to fear about, what if this goes wrong? Or I don't know, so let's say you're going to give a big presentation and you're thinking, oh God, I hate giving presentations. I hope that goes well. Of course, your mind's drifting to that, and you're probably giving yourself an image of you messing up a line or something like that when you give it a presentation. So you just need to nudge it back. But to answer your question, Tracy, there's quite a clever way you can trick yourself. So if I said to you, don't think about a pink elephant, what are you doing?
Thinking about a pink elephant.
Yeah. You'll both have various different designs depending on your creative abilities, but you've got no choice to think about a pink elephant. So if I said to you, don't think about happy thoughts, you just forced yourself to think about happy thoughts, because you can't process, the brain can't process a negative. It can't process not doing something. It has to think about actually doing it. It might visually think, I'll put a big X on it, so I'm not thinking about a pink elephant. So you can actually trick your mind. So if you keep worrying about something, you can use the opposite of what that is and say, don't worry about the presentation going really well, because now you've created a picture in your head of it going really well. So
yeah. You'll have to remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and the other thing with that is the word "think" is actually quite important, because it's a word that you've got no choice to avoid. You can't not think of something. If I say "think," it's called a command word, so it's actually deliberate using that word as well.
Interesting. You've also written a book, haven't you, about the mind and thing? I think you've got a bit of an interesting story of how that came about as well. What's in the book? And how did it come about? What spurred you to do it?
So about 10 years ago, I started reading as much as I could about the mind. I've got to understand. It's just it's the most amazing thing we've got. But we haven't got a user guide, and we don't know how to use it. It's the most amazing piece of tech. So I'd written lots of material, 3 books worth of material actually, and created all sorts of notes and different ideas. And I always try to distill it down into what I call a so what. So something practical that you can use rather than just lots of nice theory. But I did nothing with it. And then March 2020, during COVID, a friend reached out to me, gave me a call and said, look, you don't know this, and he's happy for me to share this story. He said, but I had a childhood trauma. It's always been on my shoulders, and every couple of years it absolutely floors me. I went, wow, okay. He said, I know you're into all this mind stuff. He said, so is there anything you can do? I said, well, let's just go for a walk. So the time I was living in Shropshire, so it was deep snow. We just went for a 2-hour walk. And now, as I sort of listened to him and explained what was going on, I thought of one technique that I'd got buried in the back of one of my unpublished books. So I just shared that with him. And we talked it through, and I explained it with him. And there's a particular diagram I sketched in the snow to explain how it worked, which I'll share with you in a minute.
That's handy that it was snowing then.
Yeah. And we left it at that. And he already sort of felt a lot better, obviously, just talking about it and having some support. And then the next day I went to see him. I thought his shoulders were back. He was like a little kid. He was about mid-60s, but he was like a little kid. And I said, well, what's happened? What have you done? He said, I did it all night. What you told me. Well, I said, it's a habit that I taught you to do, for a couple of minutes each day. I couldn't help it. He said, it was so much fun. I just really enjoyed it. And at the time, his words, and he's not a melodramatic person either, he said, "You've saved me. You've transformed my life." I went, wow, okay. So we sort of carried on, and he carried on using this technique, and I'll explain a bit more about it. But what really got me was 6 weeks later, he said to me, "I've been doing it every day for a couple of minutes, like you said. As you said, it's really fun to do. And I've chosen," which is the important word, "to go back to my old childhood memories that I dare not go near because they were so painful. And now they're not painful, and I'm remembering the good bits." And that's what really got me. I thought, blimey. He said, "For God's sake, do something with this." So last year I published my book, Nuclear Powered Resilience.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Available on Amazon, I assume.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely. So, and it, what it is really, it was a combination of science and personal experience. So my friend, bless him, had spent a fortune in all sorts of therapy and trained himself in all sorts of different techniques, but nearly all of those techniques prod the problem. They get people to relive it, which has its place if I don't know, you're a veteran of Afghanistan or something or other, or you've been in a burning building and you need to process what's happened. But not if it's something that's happened a long time ago, because all you're actually doing is, in the brain, something triggers an emotion, something you see, and it reminds you of something that's happened in the past. So you end up with if you think of that as a neural pathway, you end up going down the same neural pathway. So you've got a trigger there, something's happened, you think, oh God, I'm off thinking about what happened and all those sort of nasty thoughts. So by having therapy that just gets you to talk about it, we use phrases like a well-trodden path. I'm stuck in a rut. The reason we use that is it's effectively you're creating a neural pathway in your mind. It really is as simple as that. So all I did with my friend, I said, well, you've got this neural pathway. We're going to create a new one. And I just sort of sketched. I said, imagine it like a train. So you've got a train track down here and you've got one up there. So what we're going to do is keep practicing every day this new neural pathway that's fun to do, that's enjoyable. And in time, this one, metaphorically speaking, is going to have a bit of weeds growing over it because you're not going to use it. And it's just going to be natural for you to use this one. And that's the diagram I sort of sketched out in the snow with him, because he said, how's this going to work? And I said, it's that simple. You're just you're choosing to go down a different neural pathway. So the one that I chose was unconditional love. So, which is based on my personal experience. So I grew up in a very rough council housing estate, which was an interesting place, and it's in Panorama program at one stage. But my brother and I, he's 4.5 years older than me. We had tough times and all sorts of things happened. I lost my mum when I was 17, a week after diagnosed with cancer, and all sorts of things like many people do. But somehow I only sunk to a certain level. And because we had unconditional love from our parents, they were always there for us, came to everything we ever did, supported us. If we failed, it didn't matter. If we tried something, it didn't matter. They were just always there for us. It just gave me, that's why I call the book Nuclear Powered Resilience. It just gave me that inner strength. To be honest, a strong voice saying, well, sod the world. At least I know I'm loved, and that's what really matters, and let's move on. And that was particularly pertinent for my friend, because obviously he didn't have that. He had a childhood trauma. But my logic was simple. We all need love, and we all need to belong to something. And certainly in my experience where I grew up, that's why a lot of people turned to crime, because they didn't have that. So they went to a different community that gave them some camaraderie and a common purpose. So it's as simple as that. So when I started this technique with them, I just said, think of one person in your life that sums up unconditional love. Just one person. And he went, oh, it's so-and-so. Great. Start with that. So we just built what I call a mini movie. So your own sort of mental images, a little movie. We will do it instinctively anyway, and lots of emotion, and kept layering it. And I kept sort of teaching him the way to do that in a really good way. And I I taught him a very simple technique to make it a habit. So you just keep doing it. But of course, it's fun to do. And that's the great thing. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to examine. So even people that have had a bad experience in the past, they're not even quite sure what it is, which is quite normal. They just know, I've had a bad experience, and when this happens, I feel really bad. It doesn't matter. So this is sort of it's like a universal hug, if you like. And the minute you start to feel that old feeling, whatever that trigger is, you just go off down that different neural pathway, and that becomes your choice.
Sorry, you start to think about that movie, that new sort of movie you've created. Is that the idea then? You thought, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And because you keep practicing it once a day, just for a couple of minutes, and although as my friend found and other people have done it, they find it quite addictive. They do it for much longer because they just enjoy it. That becomes the well-trodden neural pathway. So that becomes so easy to do. It's like so many things in terms of our personalities. When we do things that are just natural to us, it doesn't require much energy. If we do things, I don't know, if you have to have a stern conversation with someone and you have to make them redundant, or something, and you think, oh God, it takes a huge amount of energy because that's not part of our normal thing to do. It's not part of our neural pathway. So, you just make it some. And that's why it's so powerful, because it's just so simple. And the mind is a strange thing, because it's the ancient parts of the mind accept real or imagined things in the same way. So, for example, if you're watching a film and someone's being chased, your heart rate will go up. If you see something upsetting, it might bring a tear to your eye or be emotional. So the rational part of your brain, the more modern part, which is at the front of the head, is thinking, hang on, this is silly. This is a film. I know it's a film. But the ancient parts of the brain, they're saying, no, we treat things, whether they're real or imagined, the same way. It's the same as when you have a nightmare. Because when you're asleep, the conscious part of the brain, the part of the front, is asleep. The old parts of the brain are fully awake and sort of fully working. So the beauty with this technique is, even if you can't think of any personal examples of unconditional love, you can make it up.
Yeah. Doesn't matter, does it? Your brain doesn't know the difference, basically. That is what you said, isn't it? Yeah.
So I had one person I did this with, and he had a brilliant way of doing it. His daughter at the time was 6 months old. So he imagined his daughter being 25 and looking after him and comforting him, which is just a great way of doing it. So it's a powerful tool. It's just the mind. It's just knowing quite how it works.
Yeah, how to use it, really, isn't it? Yeah. And from a sort of a business point of view, then, from focusing on your goals, what is there a couple of? Have you got 2 or 3 tips you could give for that, without giving all your secrets away, of course? Are there a couple of tips you could give from that? How to help you focus a bit more, because I can lack a bit of focus sometimes, can't I, Tracy?
Just a bit.
I think the first thing is to actually be clear what your goals are. Because when I talk to most people, they've got a sort of a vague idea. Well, I want to be more profitable, or I want to get to X sales, or I want to do this. But they're not actually quite sure what it is. And if they're not sure what it is, they're not creating the right images and emotions in their mind. And in terms of, if you think of it as a computer, the reticular activating system, it doesn't know what to be programmed with. It's, what do you want? Just be clear. So that the first thing is clarity, being clear what you want. And it doesn't, you could choose something that you want to do in 6 months' time that might be a stepping stone to a 5-year goal, or you might choose this sort of end goal. It doesn't matter either way, because the mind will sort of help you, but having clarity. And quite often the best way to do that is to write it down. Is just write it down. I mean, the classic way is obviously SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. But to have that clarity, but then in your mind, conjure up an image or a few images of what does that actually look like. How would you know you've succeeded? If you're starting a new company, and I don't know, your goal is to get to £2 million sales, and you want a nice office. What does that office look like? Where is it? How big is it? What colours are there? where are you sitting? How big's your office? The more detail you put in there, the better. And then imagine the emotion of sitting at that desk thinking, yeah, I've done it. I've got to 2 minutes. This is my office. This is what I've done. Because then all you're doing is programming the brain. And the reticular activating system will then filter out all the noise that's coming your way and think, this might be useful. This will help you with your goal, and it will also help you with sort of things that have happened in the past.
I saw something a few weeks ago, or whatever, or I read somewhere. You know how sometimes they say try and quiet your mind or whatever. Try and not really think of anything. But when you say not think of anything, you can't help but think of things. And this guy suggested a good way to sort of hack that is to say, if I get this right, I wonder what my next thought is going to be. And if you try it, it stops the next thought, because you say, I wonder, and then nothing comes. And it's bizarre how it works. But I think, that's quite clever, is that?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a good way of doing it. It's and the other technique sometimes people use is because sometimes we overthink things. When you have a thought, you just sort of repeat back in your mind. I don't know. You thought about a red car, so you just say to your mind, "Oh, that's great. Thank you for that thought about a red car. Next thought, please."
Right. Yeah.
Another one. But if it comes up with the red car again, you say, "Well, thanks. We've already had that one." But it does actually teach your brain. But this is one that's really weird. If you want something neurologically that will stop your thoughts, if you put the tip of your tongue towards the roof of your mouth and sort of just behind your teeth, it neurologically stops you thinking. The other similar one you can do to that is if you imagine a small oil of, say, olive oil, something like that, on your tongue, and you've got to keep the oil still. So you're imagining sort of moving your tongue like that. I know it sounds really odd.
Yeah.
But there's two major nerve systems in the body, the PNS and the SNS. One's to do with keeping you calm, the PNS, and that's why people do breathing, because it's built into your system to calm you. The other one is your fight and flight system, effectively, like panic. And neurologically attached slightly to your tongue. And also, when you do self-talk, when you're talking to yourself, you do actually move your tongue. So by doing one of those two things, you're stopping your tongue. You're getting it to do something else. So it's difficult to have self-talk.
Right.
I'll try that when I can't sleep. When my brain's going 20 to the dozen.
Is that when you wake me up and tell me that you can't sleep?
Yeah. Like that. Just as a something that came to me then, a similar kind of thinking. My yoga teacher, when we're doing yoga, quite often there's a few ladies who maybe have like an injury or, again, a bit older, and they can't always do the exercises to the full extent. So she says, imagine doing the exercises and it will have the same effect. Is that kind of an extension of what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's true. It's true. There's been countless surveys and studies done. So the one I read most recently was that over a 2-week period, so it's only over 2 weeks, they got a group of people to do physical exercises just on their arms, very light ones to do with fingers and their arms, just to strengthen their arms. And they got another group of people in a controlled way to think about doing that. So imagine they had those weights, and both of them did it for 2 weeks. So the people that physically did the work got a 40% increase in muscle mass. The people that thought about it got a 14% increase in muscle mass.
Yeah. It increased it, but not. Yeah.
And there's been some other studies where they've gone into it in more detail, and in some cases, what they found, they hadn't actually increased the muscle mass, but by thinking about it, they used more of the muscle that's available.
Right, yeah.
Because the brain said, actually, you're not using all of this muscle. You're only using a bit of it. So there's a guy who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam and was spent most of his time in solitary confinement. And to stop him from sort of suffering mentally from that, he kept imagining playing his favourite golf course back home in America. And I think it was something like a year and a half he was captive. When he finally got released, of course, he went to his favourite and he remembered every single bit. His game had improved dramatically. Yet he'd not physically played this thing for years. And everyone said, what on earth has happened? He said, well, I played it every day in my head. I know every single hole. I practiced the best way to swing it. And I remembered, if the wind blows this way, which is why sports people do visualization. So, yeah, it's...
Yeah, it's a powerful thing, isn't it? Powerful thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You mentioned a little bit earlier on, something about your gut feeling as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So, yeah, you've effectively got three evolutions of brain. The more recent brain has only been around for about 150,000 years. The oldest one's been around for 450 million, and the second evolution about 200 million. So if you thought of that as a 24-hour clock, the modern brain has only been around for about 3 minutes of those 24 hours. So the point of that is the ancient brain has a far bigger effect on what we do and how we do things. So everything you've ever done is stored in memory. And a bit like a computer, you've got sort of cache memory, short-term memory, stuff you do in every day that you need, that's relevant, and you've got instant sort of access to that. Occasionally, if that slips up, on the whole, you've got instant access to that. And then you've got all the other stuff that goes into sort of deep storage. It's like, well, you haven't used this for a while, so I'm going to put it in deep storage. And some of that is actually physically in the brain area. And some of it they found more recently is in the brainstem and also in your gut. The neurons in your gut also store memories. But your gut feelings, if ever you've done a quiz or something like that, or you've been watching a quiz on the television, there'll quite often be a question you don't actually know the answer to, but something's screaming at you. It's that. I don't know why, but it's B, and it's your gut feeling. And the reason it's your gut feeling is, one, sometimes that's where it's stored, but more than that, it's the emotional part of your limbic brain screaming at you, I've got the answer. And the limbic brain's way of communicating is emotion. So that's why you get a gut feeling. So if it's something factual, it's something that you've probably heard a long time ago, a fact, or a memory, and it's screaming, I know the answer. Listen to me.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff. Yeah.
It says, I get those feelings when I'm watching Millionaire on repeat with my mother. On countless occasions. I think, maybe I've seen the programme.
Yeah, I was going to say that number of times your mum watches it, I'm sure you must have. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's really interesting stuff.
So if people do want to get in touch with you and find out more then, Matt, what's the best way?
A couple of ways. So on LinkedIn, I post every day. So carousels, tips, ideas, techniques like that. And also if they go on LinkedIn, they'll see there's a link to, I do a weekly free newsletter called Saturday Solace. So there's lots of information in that. There's a little sign up there. Or they can have a look. They can find that also on my website at mindlocksmith.com. Or they can send me an email at matt@mindlocksmith.com. So I do lots of coaching, business professionals and their teams, and I do various workshops. So I've got a 5 at the moment. So I've got one about the book. I've got another one which people quite like, is what they should have taught you about how the mind works at school but never did.
Yeah.
I've got another one called Happy Habits, which is also quite popular. But it's but I tend to combine, because I've been in business and I've run manufacturing businesses, and I've done coaching of CEOs and things like that. I sort of do, almost you could call it mind your business. I help people with their mind and business in terms of sort of coaching. So for putting my business head on, the more I can do to help people reduce the amount of sort of mind churn they've got, procrastination, self-doubt, stress, fear, worry, whatever it is, the more productive they're going to be and the more creative they're going to be. And there's some really easy ways of helping people to do that.
Yeah. Fascinating, yes. So if anyone does want to get in touch, then we'll put all those details in the show notes anyway, so that people can get in touch with you should they need your services or help.
And obviously the link to your book as well.
Oh yeah, we'll put the link up to your book as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your time. Really enjoyed the chat. I like things about the mind anyway, so it's quite interesting, isn't it? So yeah, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes, really interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We're almost at the end of this week's show, and just as a reminder before we go, don't forget to book your place at one of our online networking events where you can meet some great business owners and build those business relationships. Remember, the best business comes from the best relationships, and the links will be in the show notes.
And if you're in the Leeds, Harrogate or York area, then why not come along to one of our face-to-face events and meet us in person?
We'd also like to mention our books, which are available on Amazon: How to Improve Your Business Networking Skills, 52 Tips to Help You with Your Networking. Our Notably Networking, a one-to-one networking notebook, a place to keep all your notes from those follow-up one-to-ones. And last but not least, our 90 Days to Your Success Journal, where you can plan, set and plot the actions you will take to achieve your goals.
So do you wish you could network with more confidence? We understand the challenges that you face. Whether you're new to networking or you're simply looking to improve your skills, our Networking Know-How course will take you through the process and provide you with practical tips and techniques to help you make more meaningful connections. Thank you so much for joining us this week on In Business Talks To Friday Fix. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, all that we ask is that you simply tell a friend about the show, and please follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd really appreciate it.
So until next time, this is Ian and Tracy, and together we are in business.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.